Copy that, dispatch. We're at marker 734. Temperature dropping fast. Visibility maybe 15 feet. No sign of the hiker yet, but we found something else. There's a second set of footprints. Search and rescue teams don't talk much about the calls that keep them awake. Not to the media. Not to their families. Sometimes, not even to each other. But in quiet moments, over coffee at 3 in the morning, or sitting in the cab of a truck after a failed recovery, they'll tell you about the ones that don't make sense. The calls where everything went wrong in ways that shouldn't be possible. The searches that ended, but never really ended. Tonight, you're going to hear 3 of those stories. From people who went into the wilderness looking for the lost, and came back with questions they can't answer. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and whatever you do, don't go looking for answers. This first account comes from a search and rescue coordinator in the Pacific Northwest. He asked that I not use his name. It was a routine call. October, early afternoon. A day hiker. 52-year-old woman hadn't returned from a trail near Mount Rainier. Her husband reported her missing when she didn't come home by dark. Standard stuff. The trail she'd been on was well marked, popular, moderate difficulty. 4 miles out, 4 miles back. Our coordinator and his team headed out at first light. The weather was clear. Visibility was good. No snow yet, but the temperature had dropped into the low 40s overnight. They reached the trailhead at 6:47 a.m. He remembers the time because he logged it. Everything was standard protocol. They split into 2 groups. One would hike the trail. The other would patrol the access road in case she'd gotten turned around and wandered back toward the parking area. Radio check at 7:15 a.m. Both teams confirmed reception. At 7:42 a.m., the trail team reached the halfway point 2 miles in. That's when they heard it. A woman's voice, faint, calling for help. It was coming from somewhere off trail, maybe 100 yards to the north, through dense undergrowth. They stopped, called out. No response. Just silence. Then, again, the voice. Help, please, I'm lost. They moved toward it, slowly, calling out her name. Mrs. Patterson, can you hear us? We're search and rescue. Stay where you are. Keep calling out so we can find you. No response. They pushed through the brush. Thorns, low-hanging branches, the kind of terrain that slows you down. And then, they heard it again. But this time, it was coming from behind them. They stopped, turned around. One of the team members, veteran guy, 15 years on the job, said it out loud. That's not possible. We just moved toward that voice. It was ahead of us. Now it's behind us. They stood there, listening. Nothing. Then, at 8:03 a.m., the radio crackled. It was the road team. They'd found something. Mrs. Patterson's car was still in the parking lot, locked, keys inside. But there was something else. A coat. Her coat, folded neatly, placed on the hood of the car. The trail team radioed back. We're hearing her voice. She's out here. We're close. The road team paused. Then, you're hearing what? At 8:47 a.m., they found her. She was sitting on a log, just off the trail, maybe 20 feet from the path. Alive, uninjured, calm. She said she'd gotten tired, sat down to rest, fell asleep, woke up disoriented, didn't know which direction the trail was. So she stayed put, just like you're supposed to. They asked her if she'd been calling for help. She said no. She said she hadn't made a sound. Our coordinator checked the time. 8:47 a.m. The voice they'd been following and they'd heard it at 7:42 a.m., over an hour before they found her. And she was less than 20 feet from the trail. If she'd called out, they would have found her in minutes. But she didn't call out. So whose voice were they following? He doesn't know. Nobody does. The second account is from a team in Colorado. This one involved multiple agencies, park rangers, county sheriff, a helicopter unit from the National Guard. The 23-year-old man went missing during a solo backpacking trip in the San Juan Mountains. He'd filed a permit, left a detailed itinerary with his girlfriend. He was supposed to check in via satellite messenger every day at 6 p.m. Day 1, check-in received. Day 2, check-in received. Day 3, nothing. His girlfriend waited until 8 p.m. Then she called it in. Search and rescue launched at first light the next morning. They had his last known coordinates from the satellite messenger. A ridge overlooking a glacial basin. Remote, steep terrain. The helicopter reached the area at 7:20 a.m. Weather was deteriorating. Cloud cover moving in fast. They had maybe an hour of visibility before they'd have to pull out. At 7:41 a.m., the helicopter crew spotted something. A bright orange tent, partially collapsed. Exact coordinates matched his last check-in. They radioed the ground team. "We've got visual on the tent. Sending coordinates now." The ground team started moving. Estimated arrival, 90 minutes. At 8:15 a.m., the helicopter made another pass. The tent was gone. The pilot radioed back. Negative on the tent. Repeat, no visual. Must have been a reflection or something." The ground team paused. "You just sent us coordinates. We're halfway there." "I know, but it's not there anymore." At 9:03 a.m., the ground team reached the coordinates. No tent, no gear, no sign anyone had ever camped there. But there was something else. Footprints. Recent. Leading away from the site. Heading downhill, toward the basin. They followed the tracks. At 9:47 a.m., they found his backpack. Sitting upright. Leaning against a tree. Zippers closed. Nothing missing. At 10:22 a.m., they found his boots. Both of them. Placed side by side. Laces tied. At 11:38 a.m., they found his jacket. Folded. Placed on a flat rock. They never found him. But here's the part that still bothers the team leader. When they returned to base and checked the helicopter's GPS log, the coordinates the pilot sent, they were correct. The tent had been there. But when the ground team arrived 90 minutes later, it wasn't. And the footprints they followed? The ones leading away from the campsite? They were barefoot. The third account is different. Because this one, there was no hiker. No missing person report. Just a ranger who radioed in something he couldn't explain. This happened in Appalachia. Late spring. It's 2019. A park ranger, 28 years old, 3 years on the job, was doing a routine patrol on a fire road deep in the backcountry. He radioed dispatch at 4:47 p.m. to report his position. Everything normal. At 5:32 p.m., he radioed again. His voice was different, quiet, careful. He said, "Dispatch, I've got a situation here. I'm going to need you to send someone out." Dispatch asked what kind of situation. He said, There's someone following me." Dispatch asked for clarification. He said, "I'm on Fire Road 12. I've been walking for about 20 minutes, and there's someone behind me, staying just out of sight. I can hear them walking, matching my pace." Dispatch asked if he could see the person. He said, "No, but I can hear them. Every time I stop, they stop." Dispatch told him to identify himself as a ranger and ask the person to come forward. He did. No response. At 5:50 p.m., he radioed again. His breathing was heavier now. He said, "They're still there. I've been walking faster. They're keeping up. I'm about 2 miles from the access gate. I'm going to keep moving." Dispatch told him backup was en route. ETA, 25 minutes. At 6:02 p.m., he radioed one last time. His voice was barely a whisper. He said, "I don't think it's a person." Dispatch asked him to repeat. He said, "I looked back, just for a second. There's nothing there. No one, but I can still hear it. It's getting closer." Dispatch told him to get to the access gate and wait there. He said, "I'm trying, but every time I walk faster, it gets closer." At 6:14 p.m., backup arrived at the access gate. The ranger wasn't there. They called his radio. No response. They drove up Fire Road 12. At 6:41 p.m., they found his truck. Empty. Keys in the ignition. Radio still on. They found him at 7:08 p.m., sitting on the ground, about 50 yards from his truck. Alive. Uninjured. But he wouldn't speak. They brought him back. Took him to the hospital. He was cleared. Physically, he was fine. But he resigned 2 days later. His supervisor asked him what happened out there. He said, "I don't know. But whatever it wasn't human." They asked him what he meant. He said, "Because when I finally stopped and turned around, I saw it." They asked what he saw. He said, "Nothing. There was nothing there, but I could still hear it breathing." And then he said something that made everyone in the room go quiet. He said, "It was standing right in front of me." Some calls don't have endings. Just absences. Footprints that lead nowhere. Voices that don't belong to anyone. Shadows that move when there's nothing to cast them. The search and rescue teams keep going out. Because that's the job. But late at night, in the quiet moments, they wonder, what are they really searching for? And what's searching for them? This is Nightmare Host. The nightmare ends here. For now, sleep well. If you can,